Good evening. So as you heard, I am Christine Sederquist. I am running for place 4 this election on the council. I have been a resident of Leander for the last 8 years here with my family. I've spent the last 6 years as a Girl Scout leader. I volunteered at Texas Humane Heroes, not just petting the dogs, but also as a founder of their grants committee. I won the 2017 President's Volunteer Service Award, and I served PTA in various roles, including communications chair, fundraising, secretary, and president. A lot of people think that PTA is all about bake sales, but it's actually not. We have budgets and we have huge fundraising goals, and the year that I took it over, we were trying to put shade structures over our playgrounds, something that LISD doesn't do for their schools. And after 7 years of not being able to get it done, in the year that I came in, we were able to not only put up 2 structures at once and save a bunch of money, but add a whole bunch of other funding to things, like start a grade level grants program for materials for students. So it was a great year. We were just very resourceful. I also served this last year on the Economic Development Committee for the city, and I was the chair of our recent charter review, and you'll find 8 charter revisions on your ballot in May. What got me interested in city government was about 3 years ago when we had built a new house, our second here in Leander, and we checked the zoning before we moved into our neighborhood, and we knew exactly what we were getting in for. It was supposed to be light commercial, and we were in the house for a couple of months, and a zoning change came up in front of the city to change it into 4-story apartment complexes right at the entrance of our neighborhood, and it couldn't have been a worse location. And so our little fledgling neighborhood banded together, and we wrote emails, and we made a stink. We went to planning and zoning meetings. We went to council meetings, and one of the things we found was that all but one council person didn't care. We could talk until we were blue in the face about how we did not want this development in this neighborhood that we invested in, where we wanted to raise our children, and it didn't matter. Sorry. It's disheartening to go in front of people and just feel like your voice isn't heard, and it's a problem that's continued with our council for the last 3 years. So yesterday, there was a council meeting, and there was a development doing the same thing. This whole neighborhood, Westwood, which has been there for about 17 years, came up in front of council, and they were opposing a new development right next to them where it should have been single-family houses. Instead, it's going to be multifamily houses and commercial, and lights and parking lots and all of it. And again, last night, that ended in a 5-2 decision against the residents. So my thinking is that as part of being on the council, one of your main jobs is to listen to residents and take into consideration what they want, because they've invested in you and in the city. A lot of people will talk about experience, and they will say that a knock on me is that I don't have experience sitting on the council. But experience doesn't matter if your experience is in making bad decisions that go against residents. We need good people who will educate themselves on issues and listen to residents. That being said, I have educated myself on issues. So economic development, I know, is a big thing for a lot of people here. We are at a huge disadvantage because of Cap Metro. You can see the difference between what we do and what Cedar Park does, because Cedar Park didn't enter into the Cap Metro deal. We did. So half of all of our sales tax immediately goes to pay for the train. I'm not saying we have to get rid of the train. I'm saying we're not getting our money's worth, and we need to be more resourceful with what we do have to work with. So the easiest way we can be more resourceful is to take a look at our codes. If you drive up 183A from Cedar Park, you can see exactly where the city limits are when you enter Leander, because everything stops except apartments. There's no more commercial development. That's not developers that are coming around and saying, I want to build, but I don't want to build in Leander. That's us. That's our codes. The transit-oriented district, the area between the 183A corridor and the train station, that's been deemed a transit-oriented district with this smart code for a dozen years, and there's next to nothing there. And we've got a hospital now that's coming in, we've got ACC that's coming in, but those have been in the works for a long time, and there's nothing popping up around them. There's not a coffee shop around ACC, there's not a pharmacy around the hospital, there's nothing. These are our codes. Even when you get down to just permits, you know, if you want to bring a food truck to Leander, it's a 7-page process of the application. To do it anywhere else, it's 2. In Austin, it's 2. In Cedar Park, it's 2. In Round Rock, it's 2. That's us making it harder on small businesses to do what they do and to really serve the residents. The importance of all this is we need sales tax for funding. According to Destination Leander, which was done several years ago by the city, if you scroll through on page 22, it says that given our current funding, how it's just property taxes, we cannot continue for much longer to fund our first responders and city services. We need to diversify where we're getting tax revenue from. So we need that sales tax, and this needs to be a priority. We can't just continue to push high-density residential. We all had the LISD bonds last year. That's all due to overcrowding. So when we're pushing all of these apartments or tiny houses and we're not getting funding for sales tax, that's just more and more burden that we're putting on city services and on our infrastructure and on the school district. And I don't want another bond to pay for more schools. They're already overcrowded. The school that I was PTA president at was Jim Plain Elementary up in the northern forgotten part of the district. And we had about 820 students when they opened up Camacho. And Camacho was opened about 3 years ago to ease the burden off of Jim Plain. Jim Plain is back up to about 850 students. It's way overcrowded. And there's not another school slated to break ground for another year or two. We really need to think about things like that when we're making decisions in the city. Another thing that can't be solved by just adding more residents is our water rates. When you add more residences, especially high density, you're adding a lot of infrastructure, and that infrastructure costs a fortune. And it continues to cost a fortune down the road. So at last night's council meeting, they showed a map of the road plan of where we're making fixes to potholes and any sort of resurfacing for roads. And there are a lot of roads that need resurfacing that aren't getting it for a long time. In 2020 is when County Road 280 is slated to be redone. And County Road 280 was one that was talked about quite a bit during the Chapman Parks decision a couple weeks ago because it's such a horrific road. Those people are going to keep waiting for a couple of years. If it's taking us this long to get to our roads, how long is it going to take for us to maintain all this additional water infrastructure that we're going to build? So this election is vital with 4 seats open. I hope that you all will research the candidates, Google their backgrounds, look at their voting records. I hope that you all will decide who has the best vision and who represents you. I know that for myself, having been through what I went through, where my opinion didn't count and my voice didn't matter, I can tell you that if you choose me to represent you, every call, every email, and every resident's voice will always count. Thank you all very much.